is Viterbi Voices.
Coming to you from the University of Southern California, Viterbi School of Engineering.
We're here to give you the inside scoop about research, classes, student life, and so much more.
All of these shared from our students, faculty, and other members of our USC community.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome back into another episode of Viterbi Voices. My name is Paul Ledesma. I am the Director of Undergraduate Admission here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering, and I am just one of your co-hosts here.
And my name's Emily Powis, and I am a senior studying biomedical engineering.
How you doing, Emily?
I'm good. We're getting into midterm season, so
I was going to say,
exciting time.
It's October. How weird is that? I cannot understand how quickly this year is going by.
Yeah, it's actually insane. And yeah, I can't believe it.
Well, welcome to October. Is it officially spooky season in your household there? Are you decorated? Are you getting ready? Are you getting pumped for Halloween?
I don't think we're really there yet, but I know that my house is really outdoorsy. So typically around October, we start like bringing pumpkins on our trips.
On the trips.
Yeah. So then we can like carve them and bake the seeds in the fire and stuff. I'm excited for that.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, happy fall and happy October, or as my favorite radio station would say, it's Rocktober. Or maybe that's what you say when you're out climbing. It's Rocktober, right?
Yeah. We're seeing like rock and roll, like stuff like that.
It's nothing but dad jokes this morning. Welcome to our podcast episode. This episode is another one of our alumni interviews. One of my favorites. I was really excited to get him on the line for the interview and for the conversation. It was great to connect with him. This is Robert Wright. Robbie is a graduate of our electrical and computer engineering department. He has both his bachelor's and his master's in electrical engineering. And he's gone on to do some really cool things. First, he worked in the defense industry. He's worked at a couple different companies. And then now, which seems to be the theme currently, which is just not at all planned, but just coincidentally, has had the majority of his career recently at Apple, where he does a lot of hardware design. Spoiler alert, he can't talk about anything he does. And so there are some very strict rules, and he had to get everything cleared through the Apple executives to even be on our podcast. So thank you to all of you Apple executives for allowing him to be on, but he followed all the rules and did not talk about anything he's ever worked on or anything he's currently working on or anything he might be working on in the future. But let's just say that when you listen to him kind of avoid the question, he's definitely working on some cool stuff for Apple. So if you are at all interested in anything related to electrical engineering, or if you are a fan of cinema, if you're a fan of hip hop music, then you're going to love this conversation with Robert Wright, because he is a major fan of both and has woven both of those things into his undergraduate career when he was here at USC as an engineering student. So let's get out of the way and meet Robert Wright.
Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
Robbie, what's up, man? I can hear you. I can't see you yet.
Can't see me. Hold on one second. There we are.
There it is. Oh, look at that. Rocking the AirPods Max.
Yes, green in particular. Yeah, I did a lot of research on this. I swear, probably too much research.
No, man, that's it, man. I'm envious. I'm still got the studio beats. These are old. I need it wired for this particular setting, but that's great, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. How's the audio, by the way?
It's great.
Okay, good.
Solid. Coming through great.
Okay.
5x5. Doing good.
Wonderful. I'm doing well. Thank you. How you doing? How's your family doing?
We're great. We're great.
Yeah.
We're incredibly lucky. Knock on wood that nothing has happened to us so far, given all the weird things in the world. But other than my wife and my kid hate me from time to time, just because I'm here all the time. But other than that, everything's really, really good.
Yeah, I understand.
How about you? How's the fam?
We're doing good. We
Yeah.
have it's just my wife and the two dogs right now.
Yeah.
And the dogs love it because we've been home this whole time.
Spoiled, right? COVID dogs. It's the whole
COVID
thing.
dogs, yeah. And they're both rescues, so they have their laundry list of issues and whatnot, for sure. But yeah, it's been good. They're doing well. My wife's doing well. She's in the middle of her doctorate already.
Oh, wow.
So coincidentally, she started that back in January of last year.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if it was the best time to do it or the worst time to do it, but it was going to be remote anyways. It's for full-time workers. She's getting a doctorate of education at Vanderbilt.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's fantastic. Doctorate of Education at Vanderbilt. And does she want to use that like K through 12, higher education? Where does she want to go with that?
So she works in higher ed right now. She works at Palo Alto University, which mainly focuses on psychology and clinical studies and counseling in consortium with Stanford up here. So she's on the administration side already. And this is her emphasis is to get into leadership and organization for higher ed predominantly.
Wow. Cool, man. Well, so welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I always ask everyone this question when we start them. Are you a big podcast listener?
So full transparency, I am not.
Usually they're not. Usually.
Okay.
It's okay. That's okay.
I'm a big fan of audiobooks.
Yeah.
So I started as a way, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, when my commute time started to expand quite a bit. As a way, I was like, oh, I'm on, 2 hours, 2.5 hours on the road. How can I make that time be a little bit more productive?
Mm-hmm.
And podcasts certainly are a great opportunity to do that. Audiobooks, I like the fact that I'm able to kind of select what I'm listening to or diving a bit deeper in. So I think I've gone through about 50 audiobooks maybe in the last 3 years.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Holy cow. What's a highlight? What's a couple highlights from those?
So
50?
I typically do about nonfiction. That's what I spend most of my time listening.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
My wife does not understand that. She's like, why do you want to read that? I'm like, because I watch TV. Like, if it's good, they'll make a show out of it. Come on.
Exactly. Although with that said, I did listen to Queen's Gambit after watching the show.
Oh, really?
And that was good. That was a good pairing, definitely. Netflix did a good job, like recreating a lot of the nuance in the book, but predominantly nonfiction, either books on leadership, either business leadership or historical leadership, certainly books on like financial type things I could really learn about.
Yeah.
My favorite, probably like those big, thick, lengthy biographies on figures from another time.
Oh, yeah. You want like the John Adams book. You want the
Ron Chernow autobiographies or the Walter Isaacson autobiography. Yeah. Those that take 25 hours to get through or 30 hours to get through.
I never finished 1776. I still have it. Like
okay. I was getting through a Thomas Edison biography. I was actually reading this one. And I got about halfway. It's about 600 pages. I got about halfway through. This was a couple of years ago. I stopped. And then if I stop after a lengthy period of time, I feel the need to start again. And I got this time about 450 pages through and then stopped and went to other books. And I don't know if I'll ever get to the end of it. So I empathize.
Did you do the Da Vinci one? Isaacson's Da Vinci?
Yes. Leonardo da Vinci, certainly the Steve Jobs one.
Sure. Have to. Required reading.
Yes. That actually, we can talk about that in a bit, but that actually set me up for the interview that I had.
Oh my gosh, that's so
Apple.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
It was great timing, needless to say.
I just wrapped up. I do want to come back to that definitely. I just wrapped up Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell, his most recent one. I don't know if you've read that or not, or I add that to your queue.
That one's very popular. Like that one's well liked. I've read Outliers, actually based off a suggestion you gave me back when I was at USC. I got around to it 10 years later, but Outliers,
is good.
Tipping Point as well.
I
do like Malcolm Gladwell. I also like Robert Greene. Also similar.
I have to look at them. Robert Greene.
Yeah, like Mastery and 48 Laws of Power, very anecdotal type historical.
Oh, cool.
Type,
Yeah, I just wrapped Talking Strangers, which is really good. For anyone who's listening, it's graphic. Like there's a lot to it where like I was kind of depressed. Like with some of the stuff with the topics, because it deals with some real issues, specifically with racism, specifically with it deals with like the Penn State child abuse stuff, and it's very graphic, very, very graphic, but it for a purpose. And then I'm currently reading what's it called? I can't say the name on the podcast without messing it up. It is oh my gosh, now I'm completely blanking on it. I'll come back to it. The whole point is that it's got the F word in the title. How to the art of
the subtle art of not giving.
Yes, the subtle art of not giving enough. I'm in the middle of that right now, and I'm enjoying that quite well.
Very good. Yeah, that's what Mark Morrison, I believe.
Yeah. I want to say Mark Ronson, but I know that's not it. Right?
That's the DJ.
Right. Yes. That's the DJ.
I did also finish Empire of Pain. I do. That's about the Sackler family and Oxycontin, and so it's pretty timely. It's really well done. I do recommend that one. Yeah,
I'll have to check that out. Very cool. Yeah. Well, Robbie, we have known each other for a very long time, and I was trying to do the math on this, but I mean, I'd have to say it's like when you were a senior in high school.
Right. So half my life at this point. So because I was,
is it half your life?
It's half my life. Which because it was a senior. I came in. I did an admissions interview.
Right.
And I remember you were the one giving the interview. I'll be frank, I'm not sure how that went, to be honest.
You're here.
I'm here. I made it. But I certainly left going, I'm not sure if that went well, or I had no idea. But yeah,
I might have told you this in the past, but anyone who ever walks out, let's start here. We don't do interviews anymore. Thank goodness, because they're a mind F on you, and it's not good. So I'm glad we don't do interviews anymore. But interviews, whenever I would talk to someone, and I think we've had this conversation, is that if you walk out not knowing how it went, it probably went fine. If you walked out going, I nailed it, I'm like, it didn't go well.
Okay. That's good to know. I certainly had job interviews like that as well. So I get it.
Yeah.
So, I was 17 then, 35 now. So more than half my life while you and I have been in contact. So.
Wow. I'm sorry for that.
No, I appreciate it. I really do appreciate you giving me the opportunity to jump on here. Because like I said, we've known each other a long time. There's certainly a lot of folks that you've worked with over 20 years or so now?
Yeah.
And
21 now, which is scary.
Wow. Well, congrats on that. But I appreciate it. I know there's a lot of this opportunity could have easily not come. So I appreciate you thinking about me.
I'm glad you're here, buddy. Thank you. And I think it's important to have you on, not only because you're a cool guy and you got lots of fun stuff to talk about, and we have fun together all the time.
We do.
But I think that your story of like kind of what you wanted to do, how you kind of went through that, how you spent your time at USC. I don't want to give anything away, and I don't want to speak on your behalf, but I think like you had a plan of like what you thought you were going to be, and then things change as you go.
They did.
Right. And
they did.
And that's kind of the theme that I'm realizing now. It's an unintentional theme, but that's the theme of all of our alumni conversations is, so you think you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So out of high school, tell me about Robbie coming out of high school. You were
coming out of high school,
Santa Clarita, right?
I did. So up until I moved up here into the San Francisco Bay Area about 8 years ago, I pretty much spent about 40 mile radius outside of Los Angeles.
Got it.
I was born in Burbank, and then right around the time I was 3, I moved to Santa Clarita, which is right by Six Flags Magic Mountain. That was our big claim to fame for many, many years, especially when I was a kid. And I think that was very important for my parents, was to provide that stability. So I went to the same elementary school, kindergarten through 6th grade. I went to the same junior high and then high school.
Yeah.
And then went to USC, and then post graduating with my master's, I went back to my hometown for about a year, and then was in Redondo Beach. And so up until I was about 27 or so, it was pretty much within driving distance of Los Angeles at all times.
High school version of Robbie,
Mm-hmm.
was it always engineering? Like, tell me about that coming up in high school. Like when you're sophomore, junior, you're like, okay, college is in the distance a little bit. Do you have a plan?
No, it was never engineering, actually, to be quite honest. When I was in high school, neither of my parents have engineering backgrounds. My dad studied political science. He went to UCLA. He ended up working at Northrop Grumman and Lockheed for pretty much his entire career. So always around at least aerospace engineering, but always on the business side.
Got it.
And my mom has spent her career pretty much as a legal assistant for various law firms, primarily in like workers' comp. So engineering was not genetically predisposed to be an engineer, I guess, if you will. My grandfather, my maternal grandfather, so my mom's dad, he's the one that actually got me into computers at the very least. So when I was about 15, I think he and I put together or assembled my first PC. That's basically what I spent my high school career on, updating that. And then kind of like folks who work on their cars all the time, you're always working on your computer. To the point where I remember, this is going to date me a little bit, but I remember when if you started your computer with a floppy disk inserted into the computer, it wouldn't, the Windows wouldn't start up. And so I absentmindedly went through that process and thought, oh no, there's something really wrong. So I ended up like opening up the whole thing and started messing around with it, and then realized, oh no, I just need to eject the floppy disk and continue going forward.
That's awesome.
And that's really what started.
Also, by the way, for our listeners, floppy disks are little pieces of
Fair enough. We're going to talk about how what is it called? The V key was originally on a CD-ROM. And
Yeah. V key has come up. There's a side tangent story here about one of our professors was having this conversation about floppy disks. And he realized his kids had never seen one. So he brought one home, like not even the 5-inch one, which I think you might have referred to, but like the 3.5 inch.
The 3.5. Yeah. That's what I was familiar with. Yeah.
Right. So the 3.5, he brings one home and he shows his kids, like, check it out. And the kid's response, and this is a couple of years ago now, looks at it and says, why did you 3D print the save icon?
I believe it 100%. Yeah.
All right. So grandfather gets you into building the computer.
Right.
And how does that translate immediately to, like, I think I want to do this in college?
It got me on the path, I would say. I was always I loved math. Math was always my subject. But I also, I felt had a creative streak in me. And I was very interested in pursuing possibly something that could combine both. And
because you were into film, right? Like big, and like they didn't have a major in rap, so in rap music. So
that's true. I probably should have done music production, but no. So the combination for me, at least in my mind, especially in or around 2000, was special effects design. I was going to do animatronics or miniatures or do those types of things. Something that could combine my love of film and again that creative aspect of it with something a little bit more technical. And I came to find how mistaken I was in that, especially when special effects transitioned into the visual effects and really digital artistry. And that was something that I did not have a talent for.
Was it that you didn't have a talent, or you just realized, were you outpaced? Did you not like it? Like, what was?
I know, I don't consider myself a very artistic person. We did some like Maya 3D classes. I did some of that. And things certainly did not, I just didn't have the patience to continue building that skill set.
Definitely patience. Yeah, it's a patience thing, man. It's like, oh, did that work? Nope. Okay, let's try 10,000 other things.
Yeah.
Great. We got 4 frames.
Yeah. And you partner that with the fact that I really started to get into kind of the more computer architecture organization, electrical engineering portion of it. I also was very allergic to computer programming when I started my freshman year as well.
Yeah.
Comp Sci 101 really took care of that for me. And now again, looking retrospectively, I probably should have been a little bit more disciplined in building up that skill set, which I am currently now, but more in my free time than formerly.
Yeah, but hindsight's 2020, man. I mean, like, there's so many things that everyone would do differently. But you come to USC when you're looking at colleges, it was like Southern California. That was the jam, just somewhere in Southern California. Because your dad went to UCLA, right?
He did. And that was certainly an option that I looked like. I did apply to UCLA. It wasn't entirely Southern California, primarily in California. So the UC system, Irvine, Davis, kind of up and down California. The summer before my senior year of high school, I went and visited some family friends in New York, and we toured a couple of the Ivy League schools, so Columbia, Yale, Princeton. I ended up applying to Columbia and Stanford as well, as kind of like the other outside USC and the UC system. And USC was the dark horse winner, I guess, and all that. My mom actually was the one who was most impressed, and I felt personally that was going to be the best fit. I wanted something a bit bigger. I did apply to like Harvey Mudd as well in the Claremont schools. And that was a bit smaller, and I wanted something that would allow me to explore engineering, because again, that was the foot I was leading with, but also potentially something tangentially, something on the more creative side. And USC had the amazing film school. It still does, but certainly was reputed at the time to be the best film school in the country. So.
Totally. So it was that combination of, hey, engineering I think this is where I want to go, and I got this artistic element that I'm not denying, and maybe I want to keep, tickling that as much as possible. And you definitely did, and so I want to talk about that.
Sure.
But what's interesting is that I think about you and your dad a lot. Because please tell them I said this, because say hello to your parents, number one, for me, by the way.
We'll do.
But because they're always just so great and enthusiastic. I mean, like, nothing beats your dad's smile. Like, you can see that thing from a mile away. But I've been getting this question a lot lately about like, hey, will you not admit me because my dad went to UCLA? I'm like, let me tell you about Robbie Wright. And
well, that's certainly not true.
No, not true at all. And also just like, hey, you're one of many examples like that. But also your dad was like, so I think he wore more cardinal and gold than you ever did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to my parents' credit, I'm an only child.
Yes.
And maybe that will come through later on. But I mean, both my parents were incredibly supportive of my decision, and certainly during the time, my dad has very fond memories of his time at UCLA. My aunt, his sister, also went to UCLA for a while, and so my grandfather was probably the one that took most issue with me going to USC, just because his children were UCLA Bruins, but also very supportive.
Got it. Okay.
And yeah, my dad never. We would have fun around Thanksgiving during the game time, but other than that, always very supportive. And it never was an issue. It was never like I was betraying his legacy or anything like that.
I think that so many students are trapped into these, like, movies and TV shows where like there's like a heated rivalry. I'm like, it is not that heated. I mean, like, if you want it to be, you're more than welcome to, but
it's a fun rivalry.
It's a fun rivalry.
And it always was for me and my family. It was more fun when we won all the time. That was more fun.
Oh yeah, of course. I got asked actually for the first time, because I have a new brother-in-law, and I got asked this week, like, hey, you want to place a friendly wager on the old Oregon? Because he had Oregon affiliation, and he's like, on the Oregon game. I looked at him and said, I don't think we're playing you. Like, first,
that's right.
First, figure out your team's schedule before you start like coming at me, man. Like,
yes, yeah. I mean, it was, obviously with the Pac-12 and splitting the division like that, it was a little different. Oh gosh, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 18 years ago.
Yeah, it's very different. And that's what's so funny is like, he wants to have a rivalry with me. I'm like, you realize we have a rivalry with everybody. Like, we can't people like to have rivalries with us, and we're just like, okay, if this is a big game to you, I'm sorry, we'll make it a big game, whatever you need.
Funny. It's funny you bring up my parents, because as you think about them often, my parents think about you often as well.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yes. I mean, again, only child. So they showed up, I think, all 4 years of my undergrad to the parent teacher, or the parents weekend,
family weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. Family weekend here. And I remember my dad, he still talks about this to this day. This was imagine my sophomore year. He joined me in one of my classrooms, because you could do that, and just sitting in on like a physics lecture. I think partially to embarrass me, but partially also because he was just genuinely interested.
Yeah.
And he remembers the professor writing down an equation, and he noticed that it was incorrect. And he's still talks about with prideful glee about how he recognized an error in the physics equation before the professor did. And I remind him, like, it's interesting because you didn't say anything at the time. But all right, we'll give it to him. So my dad had a wonderful time, thought obviously that USC was a very good fit for me, also took care of me very well. And so I think generally has a general appreciation for my time at the school.
Yeah. So you you started out thinking computer science. You ended up electrical engineering. And in between all that, we talked about, we kind of skipped over, so I really want to jump into this. You have a passion for film.
I did.
And this was a big thing for you. So help everyone understand how you navigated that passion, how you kept it alive, and some of the cool things that you did.
Yeah, it certainly informally. So I didn't minor in film, but my best friend in college, who we ended up being best man at each other's wedding, also shared a strong interest in film and acting and film production.
Anthony, right?
Anthony, yeah.
Look at me remembering stuff.
I know. He's doing great, by the way.
Good. Chris Tadulu. The whole name just came to me. I'm like, it took me a while to get there. Anthony Crystal. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he and I, basically his roommate at the time was a screenwriting major at the USC Film School. And that's a very difficult program to get into. I think we picked maybe 20 students every class to get into that program. And so incredibly talented. And that was kind of our link. We spent a lot of time working either on film festivals around campus, film festivals around Los Angeles, putting together just a bunch of different projects, just working on film school projects for the students there, just getting involved. And that really, I would say, scratched that itch up until like when we put together, what was it, the Cool Institute, the Klein Institute for undergraduate engineering life, I think.
Nice job.
Yeah, thank you. I remember the t-shirt. So if I remember the t-shirt, I can remember the acronym. And we had done a short film. It was about 15 minutes long. It took an entire semester to get through or to complete. And we submitted that and ended up winning a couple of the prizes there. And so that was really great. It was an outlet for me to get a little bit out of my comfort zone, be a little bit creative. And for me, that translated back into what I was doing more on the technical side anyway. So I spent a lot of my college time, again, doing that. And then, of course, as part of a VSA, kind of starting the webisode production.
That's right.
Yeah.
You were for all of our listeners, Robbie was in charge of and essentially basically produced, created the very first YouTube video we ever put up. I think it's the first YouTube video put up as a school, because of course what we did with the student ambassadors was always ahead of everybody else.
Yeah,
and so
sure.
I haven't checked it actually. I should check it actually. But if you go to the Viterbi student YouTube account, the very first video is Robbie and Adam, if I remember correctly, making your webisodes debut. Because at the time we're like, we have to call it something. It's not just your YouTube channel. We're like, what are you making? We're making webisodes. I remember that whole thing.
Well, YouTube was relatively new. Vlogs were relatively new.
Yeah.
And so that's the format we went. They were about 5-minute videos. And yeah, that was, again, it was another opportunity you so graciously gave me that I was able to practice some things. I had some friends that interned at Adobe, so I was able to get a lot of editing software on the cheap at the time.
Yeah.
And basically just with a camera and support of other BSAs, we were able to put together, I think, about half a dozen or so that first year. Not a ton, but enough.
It was great. It was greay. Yeah, especially with nothing, no other benchmark to compare it to. I mean, it was a lot.
Right.
I have a memory, and maybe I'm incorrect, but I remember, and I'm hoping it's you because I give you credit for this when I tell the story all the time. But you were maybe it was with your roommate and your friends doing the Ed Wood Film Festival. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. I think a couple of them, 2 of them in a row.
Yeah. Tell everybody what that's about, because I've told that story and I love that story.
Well, I don't know if people know who Ed Wood is.
Well, let's start there.
So Ed Wood was a very, I think they dub him Z movie, like a lot of science fiction, but back in the 30s, where you think of those very like,
I'm gonna go 50s on that one, but I could be
wrong.
It
50s? Okay. But black and white, very stereotypically bad special effects type science fiction movies and those types of things. And so Mike Booms in the shot and weird edits and basically trying to do movies as cheaply as possible and get them out to the public was who Ed Wood was, the director. There is a movie where Johnny Depp plays him.
Yeah.
And so that one's pretty good representation of what I imagine Ed Wood was like. But
it's very avant-garde guerrilla filmmaking. Let's just go make something. Who cares if it's going to be good? Let's just see what happens, right?
Yeah, exactly right. And in that spirit, USC had an annual Ed Wood Film Festival where they gave you either a prompt or a topic or a prop or some combination thereof, and you basically had 24 hours to interpret it, write something, shoot something, edit it, and then submit it. Like I said, literally 24 hours. Later.
24 hours. That's amazing. Do you remember what your film was?
Yes. Well, I certainly remember the second one because it was not received well. We had one. It was, so I remember the prop that had to be included was a pair of sunglasses. And we called it Netscape. And it was Netscape. On a play on Netscape. Yeah, skate, like skateboarding.
Skateboarding, okay.
Yeah, it was a play on Netscape, which was an internet browser back in the day.
It's already over everybody's head.
Yeah, and basically the intention was it was a TV, or the format was a TV movie from the 80s that was supposed to be set in the future of the internet. And we called it Netscape because my character skateboarded through essentially a green screen internet, if you will, trying to prevent a bomb being planted in the internet and causing it to explode and thus disappear. So
why that you're not telling the story of you receiving the Oscar for this, I don't know.
Yeah, it did not. It was very, I would say the reception was very, what did I just watch for 5 minutes? So that was certainly our second one. Our first one actually was a Western, and we shot at Melody Ranch. Again, guerrilla filmmaking. We just showed up and they were building a set for Deadwood, I think, that TV series at the time. Really? And so we just shot around that, and we had a bunch of costumes, and it was a Western themed Ed Wood contest.
That's awesome.
I think that theme was my eyes are killing me. So we had to fix that somewhere in the. And we chose some spinoff of, or some parody of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
That's awesome. Yeah. So as an engineering student, you're getting involved in student films and the creative process. You're also taking cinema courses through the minor. Did you have a favorite course that you took in as part of that minor?
Yeah. So didn't officially do the minor, but certainly took a lot of just one-offs or audited a lot of classes. The film symposium was always a favorite. That was with Leonard Maltin.
466.
Critic. Yeah, and I think Access Hollywood or Entertainment Tonight, one of those shows at the time, And so we got to watch films usually before they were released. We'd watch a short, we'd watch a film that was a couple weeks away or a month away from being released to theaters. And then they would bring someone who worked on the film, an actor or a cameraman or a director or producer. And so it was really good to hear the interesting perspectives, both on large budget films. I think Casino Royale, they brought in someone who from the studio to do that, or just kind of your independent films where either the writer director was a former student at USC, but really kind of see these passion projects come through. And it's a very varying degrees of perspective on that. And so that one always stands out. I took that one twice. The second time I had to just, the second time I just had to audit because
you couldn't get credit for it.
Exactly.
Dude, what was like the biggest, oh my God, I can't believe we saw that film in that you got to see it ahead of everybody.
Yeah. So I would say the one that sticks out to me the most was The Last King of Scotland.
Oh yeah.
Starred Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah.
And that's the film he won the Oscar for, and the guest was Forrest Whitaker.
Oh, cool, man. So you get to do a Q&A with Forrest Whitaker prior to the movie coming out, and he wins the Oscar for that.
Yeah. And he's just got, you could just tell the method that he goes into it. He was talking about this one scene where he's playing the accordion and just how he regulated his breathing to match like the contraction and separation of the accordion. And I was like, oh, this guy takes his craft to a whole different level. And so he's just a very like introspective type person. So that one stands out to me the most. We also met like John Heater, who was Napoleon Dynamite, and he was exactly how you would, I think, you would expect him to be.
I've heard this. I cannot confirm this, and I realize I'm putting this down as a recording, but I heard that in 2019, Kevin Feige brought Endgame to 466.
Okay.
And so everybody got to see Endgame the week before it came out. I'm like,
that's
are you
amazing.
Kidding me? That's amazing.
Yeah. The biggest one I would say probably was Casino Royale.
Yeah.
And that was the Thursday that it was going to premiere at midnight. And I actually skipped that one because we had premiere tickets at Grumman's to go see it. So I saw it there instead, which is a bummer because it would have been nice to have met whoever they brought in for that. I think it was actually a label or a studio executive.
Oh, wow.
To do that. But I remember having to go like, hey, I have tickets for this in about 3 hours. So I'm going to leave. But yeah, that was probably the biggest budget, biggest blockbuster that we saw.
Do you, when you think back on your quote unquote college years, do you tend to define them around the kind of that film and artistic expression? Was that like the underlying thread through your college years?
No, I don't, not anymore. I think it was a nice hobby. And
you thought it was going to be coming in and then something else happened? Yeah,
I would say, like anything, the plan that I came in with was certainly not the plan that I exited college with. I would say the defining year of my college experience was my junior year. And that's where I felt I had the strongest hold, both on what I wanted to do, which I ended up still not doing, but how what I was working on was going to translate to that. And I think that largely had to do with the classes I was taking and the professors that I was taking those classes from. And at that point in time, I was very interested in pursuing like a PhD, becoming a professor, and working in the field of electrical engineering primarily. But I would say that resonates with me more now than the film did.
So tell me about it. What was the area? Like what was happening? What was the aha moments you were having?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I remember having a conversation again with Anthony going, you know what, the film thing is nice, but I just don't have the longevity interest in it.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed my colleagues in the engineering school. I found them to be very collaborative. I found really being able to draw off their energy and wanting to work with them. then the class that really did it for me, I think it was EE 348 with Professor Choma, who unfortunately is no longer with us.
Right.
Rest in peace to him. But his approach into CMOS transistors and his approach in really leading that class, at least personally, was incredibly motivating. It was an incredibly difficult class. He knew it was an incredibly difficult class. And he said, I want to pick those students who want to be here. And he taught us a great deal about collaborative working and working within teams, and everything that we did was within a group. And it was those late nights that I spent with that group that really solidified that this is what I want. I wanted to be at least tangentially technical or adjacently technical if I couldn't be completely technical going forward. And so I think that was probably more personality based than anything else, including the material. But that was truly what I look back to very fondly. And that was my junior year. I think that was my spring junior year.
So can you help explain CMOS to our listeners? I mean, of course, you and I know that it's a type of metal oxide semiconductor.
You're Googling.
Field effect transistor. It's a MOSFET,
Yeah.
I'm Googling as we go.
It's essentially a switch, but I mean, metal oxides transistors are the building blocks for all modern computing, right? So if you're working in binary and you're switching from zeros to one, being able to do that billions of times per second essentially requires billions of tiny switches to do that per second. And so that is the building block. I would personally, at least for me, I would explain it as for modern computing, and being able to work and it has to be pushing electrons at like the nanometer level to do that quickly. So there's a lot that goes into it. I'm certainly not the expert on CMOS transistors anymore, but yeah, that's
What do you think was, I mean, again, hindsight being 2020, but what do you think was what was special about Dr. Choma's approach? Or what was going on in that class that you're like, maybe this is what was it purely his brilliance, or was it his connection as a person? What do you think it was?
Combination of both. Certainly a brilliant professor. And I had plenty of brilliant professors at USC. I don't want to denigrate any other professors that I had. His connection was amazing because I certainly was the type, I didn't consider myself the most innate technical engineer. I still don't, but what I lacked in that, I felt I could make up for in proactivity or work ethic. And so I spent every week, I was in his office hours, probably 8 weeks straight.
Wow.
And what I appreciated about Dr. Choma was that he also recognized that as being a huge part of what makes for a successful engineer. He also recognized that collaboration and working in a team was something that makes for a successful engineer. And not that I don't have a competitive streak in me, I certainly do, but it is true. Like as you graduate and go into the workforce and as you manage your career, you're never going to be able to do that in isolation. You're always going to be working with other teams and with folks with other expertises to build the best solution, the best product, whatever it is. And so, and he had no qualms about it. I remember, so Ming Hsieh is the namesake of the EE department.
Yeah.
And Ming Hsieh took, I don't know if it was EE 348 at the time, but took that class with Dr. Choma. And I remember Dr. Choma telling me, I gave him a C and he just donated $30 million. And you know what? He deserved that C. So I appreciated just his whole approach and really wanting his students to do well. The ones that wanted to work for him, wanted to do that extra level. Because like I said, he knew his class was difficult. He knew there were other options students could take, but those that stuck around, I think he certainly advocated for and championed them for. And I ended up corresponding with him after I graduated, pretty much up until the year he passed. Yeah. So that other professors as well, but certainly Dr. Choma rings the most.
So that human connection, I think, makes a big difference. And I think what's important for a lot of students as they come in it's really interesting. I don't know if you felt this way coming out of high school, but there's this mythology around professors that people are like, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk to them. Like, I don't know if that's like some sort of like Harry Potter, like, oh, don't talk to that one, like type situation. Like there's only one cool professor or something. Like I don't know where that comes from. Do you know?
I think it comes from, certainly at large schools, you have large classes. It's just kind of the ambiguity or the anonymity of students within a large organization. And so I think the perception is the professors, if there are good teachers, and again, this is the perception, I'm not saying that this is the reality.
Right.
If they're good teachers, they still have too many students to work with that they would not have time for any particular individual. And the rest of the time they're working on their research and their grants and their all the rest of it that makes them great professors for large research institutions. But I never found that. I always felt, yes, USC is a large school as a university, and the engineering school is certainly not small compared to other engineering schools, but I always felt at least a small school feel. I never had issues meeting with professors or meeting with teacher assistants. Once you kind of get over that very impressive, intimidating type preconception.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So you go on and you get your master's right away. Did you do that full time, or you did that part time while you're working?
I did it full time. I did the progressive degree program, so the 4+1, which was great because I had no intention of taking the GRE. And I was a big
that is the benefit.
That is a big benefit, at least for me. I had done a couple of internships. I'd interned at Advanced Medical Optics, which was later acquired by Abbott, and then I'd interned at Cisco, which was the first time I had actually gone up to Silicon Valley, and then came back for that 5th year. Although I took a full calendar year to do it. I did my last class over a summer semester.
That's great. Yeah. So you get your master's, and then you started working, I think, right away at Northrop. Is that where you're working?
Yeah, that's where I started. So when I graduated in 2009, it was certainly the recession was at its peak.
Yeah.
And a lot of industries were not hiring. I'd gone through a number of interviews and multiple rounds of interviews at a number of companies. But Department of Defense, or the defense aerospace industry, was hiring as well. And so the two opportunities I ended up getting were Northrop, which was through the help of my dad, who was working there at the time, and the CIA. I had gotten an opportunity with them as well. And I ended up taking the Northrop position because it kept me in Southern California, and B, I felt the CIA position was going to be a little bit more of a lifestyle change, I would say. So
working at the CIA, probably a lifestyle change. Probably.
Right. So I started working so I graduated like beginning of August 2009 and started working about 2 weeks later in Northrop.
And we're back. Thank you so much, Paul. I really enjoyed listening to Robbie's comments on how he chose his major and how he kind of stumbled into engineering.
Yeah, it's really cool. But one thing I just realized is that we didn't tell people at the beginning of this episode, this is part 1 of a 2-part episode. So there's more to it. So if you've got through this part 1 of this, we have part 2 coming up later this week, where he continues his conversation about the work that he does at Apple. And of course, we have our fun little, I don't think I did this with Kristen, but we've got our 10 lightning round questions at the end, which are super fun. He gives some really great answers there just to get some insight into them.
Awesome.
I'm sorry, were you going to ask something? I completely stepped on your question.
Oh, I was just wondering if you have any plans for this week.
Oh, this week, man. Okay. So it's October. We are in the middle of soccer season here in my household. My daughter has games on weekends and then Thursday night practices.
Wow.
It's kind of a bigger deal. She's, about 50% in, 50% out of soccer. Some days she loves it, some days she hates it, some days she never wants to go. But when she's out there playing, she enjoys it. And so that's that. We might head to Disneyland one day this week. I don't know if I told you, but we became Magic Key holders. We bought the annual pass, the new annual pass at Disneyland, and so we try to hop over there. I think we might try to do a Friday night there to get some fireworks in.
Nice.
Which is kind of fun. So we're trying to make that worthwhile. And then, just the usual, nothing too exciting. I mentioned at the top of this episode, it's spooky season. So like I've spent this last week, we started to get some decorations. I've been on Amazon doing the dad thing. I'm now into like all sorts of Halloween lights. So I've got, witch hat lights hanging from the tree in our front.
Oh, they're already out.
Oh, I got them up. I was just admiring them before we started recording. I put up a big spider web that lights up purple on our front door. I got some purple spotlights in the big front walkway kind of leading up to the tree. I'm like, what else can I do? So I'm going to be searching for some fog machines here in the near future.
Oh yeah.
See if I can figure out how to make that. Fog machines. Yeah. So I'm going to figure out how I can get that going. It's all a question of like, how much cool stuff can I put out with little amount of effort? Like, I don't want to run a ton of extension cords. I'm really excited by solar powered and battery powered LED packs right now, because then it's like, I can put these anywhere. I don't have to worry about this giant power line running. So that's my usual thing. That's what I've been really contemplating. It's working a lot of hard work on around the house here.
Yeah. Nice. That's actually really funny, because my dad is super into Halloween too. But once we got too old to like go trick-or-treating as much, he just kind of stopped completely. I don't know where all of the Halloween stuff went.
It would be interesting to ask him, because this is what I'm realizing with myself, is I didn't care about this at all before my daughter came around. And so I think it's purely something that gets sparked because of your kids. And I'm interested to find out what happens to me when she doesn't care anymore. Whether I will care anymore.
My house, we always had a bunch of the blow up, like pumpkins and witches and stuff like that.
That might be next. I don't know. We definitely got that for Christmas, and I've always not been a big Halloween decorator, but this year I was like, hey, these are, like I said, battery packed and solar powered stuff. Like it's easy to throw out there. Let's see what happens. And Amazon is a treat to be able to do the shopping in the middle of the night, and then it arrives the next day. I don't have to put a lot of effort out. So I am currently cheating beyond all belief.
That's awesome though.
Are you when you do Halloween? Do you have plans for? I know it's a while away, but maybe we should like tease this as an ongoing conversation throughout the pod. Are you thinking about dressing up? Where is Halloween in your mindset right now?
I mean, I feel like for college students, Halloween is just like a Halloween party. So last year I was a lumberjack. I don't know. I normally figure out my my costume day of, just like
whatever you got in the closet
together.
That'll turn into this.
So I'm not really sure. We'll see what happens. I know that we're doing a spooky beach cleanup in SC Outfitters the day before.
Cool.
So I'm excited for that. We'll be.
What makes it spooky?
Beach. Well, it's the day before Halloween, and also we're gonna be dressed up. So I think it'll be fun.
Where's it at? What beach?
Oh, I'm not sure yet. I'm not planning it, but I'm definitely gonna go. I'm excited.
Okay, cool. Well, let me know, because if it's in my area, and if you're able to have us, we'd love to come down and help you with the spooky beach cleanup. That would be fun.
Yeah, honestly, more hands the better. And it's through the USC Environmental Sciences Department. They do like regular beach cleanups. So we were just hoping to partner with them and bring a bunch of SC Outfitters people.
Well, cool. That's awesome. Well, good. Well, let me know. Let's keep all of our listeners abreast of your plans for Halloween, because we are about a month away. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens and whether you dress up and what you dress up as. And maybe if you do, we might have to do some sort of like post later on to be like what the costumes are. Maybe we figure out whether there's like secrets. I'll tell you right now, we have already purchased it. My Halloween costume is actually in the closet right now. It's been purchased.
Oh my gosh.
It's been ready to go. Again, not a me thing. Again, I really have never really liked Halloween, but the idea of like family costumes has been a thing. And this year we got agreement from everybody. Basically, I just don't care, and so I say I go along with everything of what we're going to be. So I'm not telling anything. Maybe I'll give clues. Maybe that's a good idea. but family themed costume. So all three of us are in the same theme. All three of us in the same world or universe or whatever you want to call it. And when we did the purchase, like it was finally agreed upon, it's basically like, okay, here's McKay's costume. We're going to buy that. Okay. My wife says this is what she's buying. And then it's like, okay, here's what you're buying. I said, that's fine. Whatever. Will it fit? That's all I care about. Will it fit? And can I wear it and not be annoyed the whole night? Yeah. Was my two things. Anyway, we go through purchasing it again through the beauty of Amazon, and turns out mine is the most expensive costume out of all.
Oh wow!
All three. Mine is more expensive than the two of theirs combined. And she's like, "Do you guys how expensive this is?" I'm like, "I didn't pick this out. This isn't my thing. You just told me like what."
Oh my god!
That's what I'm getting. So mine is the most expensive. It is literally head to toe, let's see. The clue that I'll give today is this specific character wears a hat.
Oh, that doesn't help.
I know, but over time,
okay,
maybe more clues will line up, right? So I'm thinking this is a tease. I'm thinking for all 5 of our listeners who listen to this, maybe they could start jumping in on my Twitter account with guesses as to what it's going to be, and then we'll make sure that we announce it at the end.
Oh yeah. This is the most pressure I've ever had on my Halloween costume, just so you know. Like the wheels are turning.
Well, good. We'll get you there. And then you have to get your roommates together and figure out, like, will you guys dress up? What will it be? Maybe you guys should do a themed group. Maybe that will be the case.
I know there was talk about it, but honestly, I forgot what we were planning on doing.
Well, maybe you need to be the captain now. Maybe you need to get in there and figure it out.
Well, I'm definitely a team player, so I'll probably just follow what everyone else is doing.
Or you can be a podcaster for Halloween. Just go around with your headphones on.
Oh my gosh. That's
be,
like
what's
if
her
I
name
went
from Serial,
as a climber for Halloween.
Yeah, but Sarah, what's that girl's name from Serial? Who's like wear a Serial t-shirt, just like you have with glasses. Did you ever listen to Serial, the podcast?
No, I don't know what that is.
Oh my gosh, you haven't listened to Serial? That's one of the whole reasons why we started this podcast, was because that kicked off to be such a huge worldwide phenomenon about the random true crime story of Adnan. I can't remember his name now. Everyone's going to hate me for this, but Serial, Serial.
I was hearing cereal, like the food.
Not cereal, the food. Yes, serial as in like a progression of series.
Wow, my perception of this podcast changed immediately with the spelling.
It's a true crime podcast, and it was like the biggest thing in podcasts, which like made everybody really tune into podcasts who never had before. But you could totally do it. You could totally be her.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll look into it.
Anyway, that is probably enough for today. Let's get out of the way, get back to whatever the rest of you're doing in your world. Tune back in a couple of days for part 2 of Robbie Wright and our continued in-depth conversation about Halloween and costumes and spooky season.